Morning. Morning. So this morning I'm going to talk about the brain and meditation. I'll try to do it without putting you to sleep, because the brain. But actually it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And what I really wish is that I could bring my father back to life. My father was really into science and really down on meditation. He thought meditation was really weird. And that only really, well, people who were really out of it did meditation. So every time I see an article about the brain and the effect of meditation on the brain, I want to send it to my father, but I can't find him. He's been dead a long time. I feel him sometimes, but he's not interested in that. So Randy and I, Randy's here somewhere, are going to be teaching a class on Zen and science in May and June. I'm going to do the brain, and Randy's going to do the other stuff. So I'm going to talk about two models of the brain. The one that's gotten so much attention in the last 20 years among meditators, primarily because of the work of Rick Hanson. Raise your hand if you've heard of him. Only a few of you, but some of you. And then I'm also going to talk about a second model, which is critical of the first one. And then I'm going to suggest that either model is fine, because they both indicate that through meditation, we can really open up to a feeling in which we're not caught by our thinking. So use the model you want. Use the finger that you want to point to the moon. But mostly I'm going to spend my time with Rick Hanson's, because I don't know why. I just kind of got into it. So Rick Hanson, tripartite brain. Tripartite. Reptilian brain controls the vital functions, the heart rate, the breathing, the body temperature, and the balance. The main structures found in a reptile's brain. The brain stem and the cerebellum. The brain stem and the cerebellum. Oh, I forgot to say hi to the people online. Hi. Happy to be with you. So I can see some of you. Some of you are hiding. It's okay. It's okay. The lizard brain wants to hide. So that's the reptilian brain. And then we have the subcortex in between, which according to this model is the brain of mammals. And it's, whereas the first one is focused on, what's the amygdala focused on? Fight, flight, or freeze, or flee, because it's a scary world out there. That's what it's focused on. The second one, the subcortex, is focused on approach, in transactional approach. I'll approach you, and if you smile at me, then we might get having a conversation. If you don't, I'm going away and I'm going to approach someone else. That's the second brain, the second component. Approach, avoidance, transactional. All relationships are transactional. If I get something from you, I hang out with you. If I don't get something from you, right? So those are the first two. And then Rick Hanson actually talks about the mammalian brain, the mammal brain, as being the monkey brain, because it's the monkey who's approaching. I don't know if you've ever seen monkeys in trees, but they're approaching one piece of fruit. If it tastes good, they might They might enjoy it. If not, they'll spit it out. They'll go to the next tree. They'll go to the next tree. They'll go to the next tree. That's what we call monkey mind, right? Approach, avoidance, approach, avoidance, approach, avoidance. And then we have the third one, which is the neocortex, the outer layer. Homo sapiens, we're Homo sapiens. We're a culture-bearing, upright walking species, although my daughter says I'm not doing so good at walking upright. Rude. But I'm almost 80, so I'm trying to walk upright. So this neocortex develops connectedness beyond just getting rewards. It has the potential to do that. Beyond transaction, it has the potential. It's emotion-free thinking. And we just gone through a pandemic. Some of us think it's over, some of us aren't sure. I noticed that only one person has a mask on, so a lot of us think it's over. It may or may not be. During the pandemic, there was a lot more. I mean, this is my experience with my own family and with people I mentor here at Zen Center. A lot more depression and anxiety because the transactional connectedness wasn't working, because there wasn't anybody to do a transaction with. Anyway, they might say, oh, you have to wear a mask to meet with me, and I can't hear people with masks. So, and then there was no sense for heart connection. So there was a lot of amygdala activity: fight, flight, freeze, flee. Fight, flight, freeze, flee. In case you didn't notice, I noticed. And I noticed the impulse in myself too. So this neocortex is capable of opening beyond our tribe. It's our tribe we do approach avoidance with. I learned that you're in my tribe because I can approach you and you listen to me. When I mentor you, you really pay attention, whereas you don't. So you're in my tribe and you aren't. That's the way we do things, right? Well, let's reverse it. You listen and you don't. So beyond our tribe, opening to big mind, opening to heart mind, the interdependence of all life, the potential for the neocortex, especially if we do meditation activities that calm the first and second down, so that we just aren't always fired up by the amygdala, always fired up by the monkey brain running around. So, and according to Rick Hansen, if you put the older two together, meaning the reptilian one and the mammalian one, without the third, it's going to get ugly. Well, I think more ugly stuff happened during the pandemic. I just think so. I think so. And I'm hesitant to tell this story, but my friends went to, they went out of town for 2 weeks, and their dog and their cat are their best friends. But somehow, the person who was supposed to feed their dog and their cat, I guess their dog, didn't show up. So when they got home, like 2 weeks later, the dog was trying to eat the cat. Well, those are the first two brains working together without the neocortex. Because we may be great meditators, maybe really enlightened, but we want to survive. We want to survive. That's just, and this is Darwinian. Now, of course, again, Darwin's criticized for a lot, and I'll get to that in a minute. But this is Darwinian. So again, just to go over this again, the lizard brain is at the base, the reptilian brain right down here at the base. The subcortex in between controls more complex tasks, most emotions. And it's always approaching for rewards and affection. And with a monkey running around trying to find out who's going to give the most rewards and affection. And then the neocortex, formerly called the human brain, logical, rational, free of emotional thinking, connectedness, and can open up to big mind, has the potential to open up to big mind by calming the other two down. So the other two are always activated, always activated. So calming, I think that's enough on that. And understanding this helps us understand what's happening to us. How we might have good meditation someday, and then something scary happens to us, and all of a sudden geez, I just was spending 5 hours meditating. Now, well, that's the amygdala. The amygdala wants to help us survive. And it overdoes it because we're not nearly as much danger as we think. We're in 5% of the danger that our ancestors were in. I'm just making that up. But, we're in a lot less danger. We're a lot less danger. So now I want to talk about the critique of this model, and then I want to talk about ways of working with the brain, which are all meditative, which is the good stuff I want my dad to read. So, first of all, first critique is that even lizards have mammalian components. Even lizards have subcortexes. Even lizards have neocortexes, and that it's discriminating to talk about the humans as being the evolved ones. That's one point of view. And secondly, all the parts in the brain are always working together as a whole. There may include different parts, but they're in relationship to the others. It's what we call dependent co-arising, right in here. Everything is dependently co-arising. And if we segment it into this part and that part and the other part, we can't appreciate its dependent co-arising. And Norman Doidge, whom I talk about in my second book, Zen in the Age of Anxiety, talks about this model. And he says there are really no walls that divide up brain functioning. The evolutionary model is simplistic. The brain hardwires itself, the whole brain, and gets into grooves and becomes hard, and we become habituated to certain behaviors, so we lose our beginner's mind. And through meditation, we can resume to a more neuroplasticity where we feel the inner being inside. And so both of them are going the same direction. They're just sort of different theoretical models about the brain. And I had to get licensed as a psychologist, I had to learn about the brain. I did it for a week, I passed the test, and then I forgot it all. But lately, I've really been getting into this stuff because it's so fascinating in relation to how many of us spend so much of our lives meditating. So all brains are an open, malleable network from the neuroplasticity model point of view. And yet they harden. We get in habituated ways of dealing with each other, and it all hardens. But all parts of the brain have the potential to rewire themselves because of this neuroplasticity, because they all are dependently co-arising. So, having talked about these two models now, I want to talk about some things that that the models agree on, and they agree on just about everything except the underlying theory. This is interesting. First of all, they talk about implicit memories. Brain scientists are talking a lot about implicit memories, which we know about as meditators. Underlying expectations, beliefs, strategies, mood, and they have a negative direction. In case you haven't noticed, they have a negative direction. You think, just for you? For all of us, they have a negative direction. Why? Nature only cares about passing on genes. Nature doesn't care if we suffer along the way or create suffering for others. It just wants to pass on its genes. So we're tilted against lasting contentment and deep fulfillment. We have a negativity bias. A negativity bias. Hundreds, thousands, millions of years dodging stones, chasing food. More important to notice and react to and remember the stones than the food. Maybe we find a really, really great garden of sprouts. I like sprouts. We don't remember that when somebody gives us puts a stone up. We only remember the stone because we want to survive. We want to survive. If we fail to avoid a stone, somebody's going to get us. A predator is going to get us. A natural hazard is going to get us. And then no more chance to pass on our genes. So, scientific evidence for this, brain science. I'm only doing brain science here. Studies that Norman Deutsch is familiar with, and also Rick Hansen. 5 good interactions it takes to make up for a single bad one. You ever notice that? You'll remember the bad one. It takes 5 good ones to make up for a single bad one. Wow. Wow. Number 2, people will work much harder to avoid losing $100 than they will to gain $100. So painful experiences are more memorable. I took a psych class years ago when I was in graduate school, and we talked about this, and they had us, the teacher had us in the class break up into pairs and list our earliest memories. Well, and 9 out of 10 of us had our earliest memory was a negative one. Oh. I mean, I had lots of TLC in my life when I was 3 and 4 years old. But what I remember is going to a Halloween party and just being scared to death by that darkness and those masks. And that's my earliest memory. Not my mother singing to me or any of the good stuff. So that's how we're hardwired. And what do you think about at the end of the day? What do you think about? Well, do you think about the 50 things that went right or the one thing that went wrong? What do you think about? So this is Rick Hansen's phrase: the reptilian brain is like Velcro for negative experiences, but like Teflon for positive experiences. But let's take Norman George's model and say the whole brain hardwires negative memories, and that's like Velcro. And the positive memories are like Teflon. Either model. But now I'm getting to we've been through the hard part of this talk. Now we're going to do for the good part. The good part is that we don't have to accept this bias. That we don't have to accept this bias, that we can tilt toward the good. Think of all of the things we repeat at Zen Center, all the chants, all the meditation. We're tilting toward the good. We're trying to tilt toward the good. so we can be more happiness and more healthfulness. Every day, lots of good things happen. Even during the pandemic, lots of good things were happening. And there are lots of other good things that are just ongoing aspects of our lives that we sort of tune out. We take them for granted. Maybe you think about your friend who's unhealthy, but what about your other friend who's healthy? Maybe you think about your sore toenail, but what about the rest of you that's fully functioning? So the practice, spiritual practice, is partly about tilting toward the good, so that we can compensate for this innate negative implicit memory bias. Right now, things are peaceful here, right here. That's pretty good. I've never had to be in a war in my whole lifetime. Look at the history of human beings. I've never had to be close to a war. That's pretty good. Pretty good. I may want to fixate on you-know-who politically, but things are pretty good. And you have good qualities. You think you have bad qualities, but maybe you're determined. Maybe you're sincere. Maybe you're fair. Maybe you're kind. You have good qualities, but you tend to kind of overlay them with this implicit and negative memories. And of course, that doesn't mean there aren't tough parts of life. Life is tough, but we can recognize and accept them and tilt toward the good. Since that will help put whatever challenge we have in perspective. It'll lift our energy and our spirits. We'll fill up our own cup so we can have more to offer others. One of my favorite quotes from the Dhammapada, which I've used before: all that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is found in our thoughts and made up of our thoughts. If a man speak or act with an evil thought, suffering follows him as the wheel follows the hoof of the beast that draws the wagon. If a man speak or act with a good thought, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves him. So the Dhammapada is encouraging us to tilt toward the good. To tilt toward the good. And when we do that, our implicit memories will become more positive. But it takes practice. This takes practice. Can't just do it in a day. You have to do it for a life. A life. Calm the lizard in that first model, or just softening and rewiring the entire brain in the second model. But not, you say, we think of soft brain, we think of someone who is developmentally disabled. That's not what I'm talking about. Although some of the developmentally disabled people I've worked with were much more deeply aware often than I was. But I used to work with people like that, but I won't get into that. So Rick Hansen says, neurons that fire together wire together. Well, that's pretty good. Neurons that fire together wire together. The more we get our neurons firing about positive stuff, the more we'll be wiring up positive neural structures, which have plasticity to them, whereas the negative ones do not have plasticity to them. So we can soothe the structures that manage our primary emotion. And our primary emotion is fear. Sorry, our primary emotion, I already talked about why our primary emotion is fear. We want to survive. We want to pass on our genes. So we know that. That's our primary emotion, fear. It emerged a couple 100 million years ago, according to these guys. Well, I don't know how they know. And this is based on the premise that if we're not continually uneasy and vigilant, we'll fail the first test. Instead of eating lunch, we'll be lunch. It's the first test, to be able to eat lunch rather than be lunch. So Rick Hansen calls this petting a lizard. Petting a lizard. Because we all have an amygdala that's, can we open up to it and pet it? Or if we don't want that model, can we just soften the fear-based hardwiring throughout the brain? And one of the things we can do, which these brain scientists talk about, I just tried it the last week, is at the end of the day, we can review a positive thing that happened to us before we go to sleep. Usually at the end of the day, that's not the case, but we can consciously, every day something positive happens to us. Maybe you just have a nice, maybe your significant other bakes a souffle for you, or for her and you, or for him and you, or for they and you. and you enjoy that. Maybe a little child smiles at you, something. And the brain scientists are suggesting before we go to sleep, we review and find a positive thing and go over it before we go to sleep. That's pretty interesting to begin to enchain, to modify these implicit negative memories. And I also have been spending a little bit of time on the research that's done by Richie Davidson at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, who's a Buddhist and has written about the brain. And he's been doing research on the amygdala. Remember the amygdala? It's the brain stem down here. And he's done research on meditators and people who took measuring the size of the amygdala. I don't know how they do it. Measuring the size of the amygdala, and people who one of the groups was people who began an MBSR course, mindful-based stress reduction, which I used to teach years ago. We would measure the amygdala at the beginning and at the end, and he noticed shrinkage, and he has his data to support this. And then they work with long-term but that was just temporary shrinkage. Because in the 11th week, if people didn't do the meditation anymore, whoosh! But then he also worked with some really long-term meditators who had just put way over 10,000 hours in. And his conclusion is, he's got his data here, permanently shrunken amygdala. Interesting, because we don't need that much amygdala activity. We just don't need that much. We're not in that much danger. We're in a little bit of danger. We need an amygdala, but not that much. And the larger the amygdala is, the more likely it's going to dictate our emotional responses. So here are 4 things. I'm going to close by 4 things, and then plus an exercise at the end. Let's see, how am I doing time-wise? Oh, good, 10:30. 4 things we can do meditatively to soothe the lizard or return the brain to its natural neuroplasticity, depending on which model you want. Maybe you'll come up with a 3rd model. That's what scientists do, Always try, empirical. We can, and these will not be new to any of you, but the brain scientists are talking about them, so maybe that makes a difference to me. Breathe. You can breathe. You can practice awareness of your breath throughout the day. A short, shallow breath triggers the stress response. Over and over again, this has been duplicated in scientific experiments, which results in amygdala hijack. Amygdala hijack, right? Most of the stuff's intuitive, but it's just so wonderful to see it laid out in a scientific way, finally. And, the etymology of the word spirit, spiritus, you've heard me talk about this, some of you, spiritus from the Greek, Aristotle, which means breath. And to be in good spirits is to be in good breath. To be in bad spirits is to be in bad breath. And I don't know how this all developed, but this is in Europe. And think about it. When you're in good spirits, usually you are in good breath. When you're in bad spirits, usually your breath is shallow. But by just paying attention to your breath, so simple, so simple. One year I taught at a bunch of people from the business community. We did something at Zen Center. Zen Center sponsored something for a bunch of people in the business community at St. Thomas 2 years in a row. The first year I had my friend Norman Fisher come teach it. The second year I taught it. And so a whole day of teaching people from the business community about meditation. So I taught them about sitting meditation. I had them walking in the corridors of St. Thomas for their walking meditation. I had them do journaling meditation this is Natalie Goldberg style. You just do it. You don't cogitate about it. You just do it. And I had them do eating meditation. And then I also taught them 3 breaths meditation. 3 breaths. I said, well, now when you get up to go to the bathroom, I want you to take 3 breaths before you go into the bathroom. When lunch is over and you come back to your chair, I want you to put your hands in your chair and take 3 breaths before you sit down. And I remind them throughout the whole day to do this. Then 6 months later, I had them evaluate. I had them give me feedback on what had been the most impactful for them of all the different meditation things. They said 3 breaths. Well, why? I think because that's a very simple one. A lot of people don't think they have time to meditate. They don't know how to meditate. Going. 3 breaths, 3 breaths. So that's the first one, breathe. Second one is bare awareness zazen, bare awareness meditation. Bare awareness of the ongoing background trickle, which is usually negative. It's usually negative. Sometimes it's positive, but it's a trickle of anxiety, subliminal negative self-talk. Has anybody not experienced subliminal negative self-talk in their meditation? I want you for my teacher, although I don't believe you, but subtle guarding and bracing is what that negative self-talk encourages us to do. So the coffee hour is coming up in 25 minutes. Guarding and bracing. Now, if you already know some people here, and you have some good relationships, and you know where to go, a place to go where you can eat, or where you won't be overwhelmed by the noise. But if you're new here, or you haven't found a groove here yet, you haven't developed a hard neuroplastic groove to go in, do you want to stay? How are you going to get out of here without? You don't want to run out. This is. Oh, some people would see you running. Ooh, that'd be really embarrassing. Now, those of you who've been around for 2 or 3 years, this is familiar milieu to you. You're pretty hardwired about this milieu. So if a Zen teacher, I want to put you in a totally different milieu and want you to be with you, not in a kind way, not in an unkind way. It's the nature of the mind to be on alert. So in our bare awareness meditation, we just notice that. We recognize and accept whatever's coming up. We recognize it, we accept it, we breathe through it. And if we do that with no judgment, no hint of judgment, it releases. It releases. So that's the second one. Practice bare awareness meditation. The third is do a mantra. And those of you who've been with me over the years know that I talked a lot about this. I have a whole chapter in my last book about it, or maybe my next book. Oh, and in my next book, my book is coming out in May. I have a whole chapter on mantras and gathas. And but I use mantra in a very expansive way. My first mantra that my teacher gave me was the Heart Sutra mantra. Gate, gate, para, gate, parasam, gate. But you should develop your own mantra and use words that resonate with you. Do your own. Or you can also do a formal one. I can give you a formal one like my teacher did, but it should resonate with you because it's helping you open up beyond the limitations of your amygdala or your frozen brain. And you're sending soothing and calming vibes down at the most ancient part of yourself, the frozen layers of yourself through your mantra. Do a mantra. Do a mantra. And the fourth one, body scan. Let's see, I've only been doing that. This is not part of how I was trained in Zen. But see, I've been now training people in Zen for 25, 30 years. So how I was trained and how I train, I just train the way I train. Body scan, scanning your body. When I taught MBSR years ago, mindfulness-based stress reduction, it was the body scan that helped people the most. Lying down, scanning their body without judging, just breathing through, noticing the tension, noticing the stress, noticing the opening, just breathing through it, lying down, body scan. Most of the signals coming into the brain originate inside the body, so let's get to know the body, okay? That's where they come from, not from out there. As our body settles down, and that sends feedback up into our brain that all is well. All is well. How many of you have done a body scan before? Oh, see, this is good. Things have really changed to see that 80 to 90% of you have done body scans. Not part of the repertoire I learned. We did the Suzuki Roshi or Katagiri Roshi. They were interested, they just didn't know anything about it. Wasn't. Well, so I think I'm going to finish by doing a little practice with a little body scan practice. But it'll be a little body scan practice with an edge to it, because usually with body scan you just go through the whole body and just breathe. But I want you to do it with bringing up some a little bit of negative stuff. So let's start by closing your eyes all the way, or only 3/4 of the way if you want. Find a posture that just feels comfortable, and take about 3 calming breaths, breathing in cool, clean air all the way into your belly, and then letting the air release on its own. Now, if you'd like to, you might identify an issue or a concern that just comes up. Anything. It can be small, inconsequential, It can be something that's been tugging on you, an issue or concern. Identify that. And now we'll begin the body scan. By just surveying your entire body from the top of the head to the bottom of the toes. Surveying your body with your concern in mind. And finding a place in your body that's not quite as relaxed as you'd like it to be. And just being with it, just noticing it. I don't know if it's in your stomach or your chest or your forehead or somewhere else. I don't know if it's moving, if it's staying the same, if it's hot, if it's cold. Just watching it non-judgmentally. Just breathing through it and then coupling your concern with it. If your concern wants to be coupled with it, if it doesn't, don't fight it, just be with it. Just be with it. And if it moves from your tummy to your chest, that's fine. If you can't identify a specific part of your body that's a little bit stressed out, that's fine too. But if you can, breathe into it and bring your concern right there to be with it, to be with it. Non-judgmental. Breathing through it, watching it change or stay the same. Noticing if any feeling or emotion comes up, if any image comes up. If nothing comes up, that's fine. And if something comes up, you might want to just pay attention to that in a non-judgmental, open way. Because so often, the projections that we carry around from the past influence our brain. And our body is part of our brain. By noticing where they are in our body and breathing through them, we can begin to recognize and accept and open. Recognize and accept and open. An image or no image, a feeling or no feeling, just a place in your body that's still a little bit stressed, or not quite as relaxed as you'd like it to be. And I'll be quiet for another minute or so and just let you explore part of your body that's a little bit tight, and any feelings or emotions or images that come out of that without trying to judge at all. And I'll ring the bell now to end this little body scan. Oh, I don't have a bell, a bell here. Melinda will ring a bell. And just come back to the room, bringing anything you'd like to bring back with you, and leaving anything behind you don't care to bring back. And that's the end of my talk. And I'll be glad to. And this is just like just the hors d'oeuvre for this class that Randy and I are going to be doing. Although I have to keep studying, so I can give you more than an hors d'oeuvre by the time we teach it. So comments? Let's see if anybody online first has a comment or a question. Anybody online? 41 people. Any of you 41 people have a comment or a question?
I actually do have a comment. Hi, Tim. This is Parker.
Oh, hi, Parker. Oh, you're good to see you, Parker.
Good to see you too. Thank you so much for your talk today. I have a lot of thoughts going through my mind, but I really appreciated kind of bringing, the brain-body connection back and observing what we're feeling in our bodies. And I guess you kept saying during the brief practice, releasing emotions, feelings, and images. And for me, one thing that I was thinking about as you were talking about the different kind of models of the brain was how we attach ourselves to images and objectify ourselves. And it kind of brought me back to Lacanian, image and identification. And
Brought back to what?
Lacan and image identification.
Yes.
I guess something that I struggle with, I think when I do bring myself back to my body, is releasing of the images that I have of myself or others have of me. And I was wondering, do you have any suggestions as to how, rather than living with ourselves in this frozen state of images, that we can, help release these images, if that makes sense? I don't know if it does.
I think what you're asking is, Parker, often negative images come up. We find a place of tension in our body, and then a negative image comes up. And are you asking if I have suggestions about how to deal with them and replace them? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, and I guess not becoming attached to them, because that's, I think, what we typically do when we lose attention to our body is we kind of hold on to them.
Yes, well, that's a really good point. And supposedly when we do this practice, we're liberating. We're liberating both the tension and the image by not judging it, by just noticing the connection without being intellectual about it within our body, between fear, anticipation, anxiety, and the past. But it's all created. It's all self-created. It's all inhabits our body. But if we just see it, Parker, without judging it, it liberates itself. It just does. Now we have such a tendency to want to judge it immediately. Oh, I shouldn't have that image. That image is coming from your ancient body mind that was trying to protect you and is still trying to protect you. So honor it. And then, of course, you can also do a mantra about it. That's one of the other meditations I was talking about. If there's a persistent image that's coming up, then do something soothing about it. If it's dominant, do something soothing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Anybody else online?
This is Carrie. Hi.
Hi, Carrie.
Thank you for this talk. I think it's always wonderful that you bring in science and connect it with our practice of Buddhism. And we, like you said, if you could talk to your father and say, hey, we're just finding more and more science-based evidence that what you've been doing for decades is good for us scientifically. So that's just nice to have that, to know that what we are doing is making a difference, not only in our practice and our lives, but actually in our brain, it's making a huge difference, and we have a way of taking care of ourselves. So thank you. I just appreciate all the tips and information.
You're very welcome. Okay, now turning to people in the room. Yes. Hi. Can you speak kind of loud, because I'm hard of hearing.
I'm Jeremiah.
Hi, Jeremiah.
Nice to meet you. I had a question about the 1 to 5 ratio of negative things and positive things. Does the quality of the impact of these things affect that ratio at all?
Yeah, so if you've had one really meaningful, joyful interaction with someone you love, it's going to affect those 5. So maybe you only need, so that does affect the ratio, yeah. And if you had something really awful happen to you, you were traumatized, you had a traumatic event, then the ratio is more like 1 to 10 or 1 to 20 until you let go of it. Yes, that's good. Thank you, Jeremiah.
Thank you.
Other people. Aaron.
So I like the suggested practice of reviewing something positive that happened during the day, not just because of what it might do then, but it puts you on alert throughout the day to try and notice something to bring up later that night. It's like you probably have a homework assignment to look for those positive things, which we usually aren't geared that way.
Very good, Aaron. Thank you. Yeah.
And then I would have a question about
go ahead.
the mantra practice and whether that is the same or different from transcendental meditation, but that could be a really long.
Oh, I can answer that, but I have to be careful because I have my own biases. I think that a lot of people who come to Zen Center did TM. A lot of people. And then they come to Zen Center, and some of them still are actually using their mantras. More of them are not. But I think that's wonderful. So I actually don't have anything. I thought I might have something negative. I don't have any negative to say. I think that's wonderful. I think that what TM does is it creates a setting where this mantra that you get is the one true mantra. And your teacher has given it to you in a sacred setting, and you should never repeat it to everyone. And that helps you psychologically, but I don't believe in it. And also when we chant the Gate mantra, what do we say? We say it's the one true mantra. We say it's the sacred mantra. We say it's, so we're doing the same thing. That's a way of kind of helping us psychologically, but don't believe it. Do you understand what I mean? Julian.
Yeah, I had your talk. I had a thought when you talked about fear, in the primordial phase one. I thought about how I think that when I was very, very young, it was love instead. Like
how what?
When I was very, very young, children very, very, very young, it seems like they just had love, right? Love their mom and whatnot, and their dad, and. For some reason, I thought of like salmon swimming upstream to spawn. Yeah, they have no fear of the bears that are going to eat them. And all of it's just love to procreate, right? And so then, where then does it come into play the difference between grasping for what you want too much and aversion of the things you fear? Because it seems like they're equally powerful, both fear and love.
Okay. So you're. So, and it depends on what we're saying here. The love, which is just approaching you to get something from you, that love is not big mind love, but a love that's deeper than that. Even if you go to sleep and during my talk, I love you just as much. I do. I mean, that's big mind. That's the neocortex. But the midbrain is, I want to get something from you. I'll love you, but it's contingent. It's not unconditional love. So approach avoidance is part of the first two. Again, I'm using the earlier model. The later model would say anytime you get attached to love, it's not love, because you develop your neuroplasticity hardens. And real love doesn't know it's love because it's open, it's interdependent. Yeah. Hi.
Hi, I'm Natalie.
Pardon?
I'm Natalie.
Hi, Natalie. No, I'm hard of hearing, so you either have to talk really loud or take that mask off.
Okay, I will take it off briefly. And I have a question about the 4 different steps that you mentioned. Should they be done in a sequential basis?
No.
Yeah, oh, so you could just use them.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if.
Yeah, I didn't even mean that they were steps. I just meant they were different ways of loosening our neural hardness to return to our original plasticity. We call that the Buddha nature, our original plasticity, original openness, good mind. Yeah, any of those 4. Those are just 4 that are in the literature and in how I've been teaching the last 20, 30 years. Mm-hmm.
And then I had just one comment that I wanted to make in regard to the body scan. And just to say that our military has been using this with vets to help them sleep.
Really?
Yes.
Well, good for them.
Very effective.
Good for them. See, again, I want you to send me that paper so I can send it to my dead father.
Yeah.
Really, but actually not really. I would like to see the paper. Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I was just expanding, excuse me, I was expanding on the one positive thought at the end of the day. I don't know if you discussed previously the idea of journaling journaling three grateful practice, 3 things positive that have happened during the day. I know I've started and stopped it, so I'm sort of regular with that, but I have friends who stayed with that and really find it just becomes a part of the practice.
It's a wonderful practice. Could you guys hear him?
Yes.
Could you guys hear him? Oh, it's a wonderful practice. So it's a variation of what I was talking about. It's got a little more specificity to it. Sometimes it's good to have a little more specificity because it helps us stay with it. It doesn't get all vague. Yeah. Thank you. Let's see. Oh, time is passing when we're having fun. So here it is. Thank you, and I'm going to watch you run out at coffee hour. And I'm going to run upstairs. See, I get to run upstairs to my own room. I don't have to hang out. Amygdalas are firing. Amygdalas are firing.